So welcome to episode 9 of Level Up, our weekly Q&A show where your questions drive our conversation. If you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please do follow the links in the chat and we'll send you over to Slido, which is actually really where you get to join in and drive the show by voting up the questions that you would like answered and by entering your own, and they will appear in real time for our panel to be able to see. We'll try and get to every question. The first half of the show is general Q&A, and this week's theme is all about project and change management. So you can ask pretty much anything that you would like relating to that. In the second half, well, we're going to choose a topic where we want to spend a little bit more time, and more on that later. So let's jump straight in and meet our panel for today. We're going to begin today in South Africa with Lauran Anderson, who is the business owner and trainer for Enlighted. So welcome, Lauran, to the panel. Great to meet you.
Hi, thank you so much. It's amazing to be on this panel. I think any forum where we can all kind of get together and share ideas is phenomenal. So thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Lauran here from South Africa, looking forward to seeing the questions and answering them and interacting with the rest of the panel.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Lauran. You're most welcome. Lovely to meet you. Back over to the UK now. We welcome Robert Gregory, who is a management consultant with Robert Gregory Consulting. So hi, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here. I'm sitting in a rather dull day just south of London, and I'm looking forward to taking part in the conversation today.
Okay, all right. We'll try and bring a little bit of sunshine in from the other colleagues on the panel and so on. And to do that next, I'm going to invite Yvonne Thevenot, who is in Toronto in Canada, to introduce herself, tell a little bit about her role, because she's an independent consultant who specialises in change management. Welcome, Yvonne.
Good morning from Toronto, Canada. Not afternoon here yet. Kicking off a Monday morning with some great colleagues and looking forward to the conversation. Yes, I've been a change specialist for about, 20 years now, and primarily in financial services, but everything from agriculture to fintech. So really looking forward to learning and sharing.
Excellent. Thanks very much indeed. And thank you for getting up early and joining us from the beautiful city of Toronto. Back to the UK again now, and Shontelle Bryan. Shontelle is a managing director and lead trainer for Change Consult Limited here in the UK. Hi, Shontelle.
Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this panel today. I'm really looking forward to answering questions and, just enjoying myself in this panel.
Yeah, brilliant. And we hope that you do enjoy it as well. It's a really nice thing for us all to be able to get together when we can't do physically, but to get together like this and also to connect with people all around the world. And finally, making up our panel of experts is Nick Vieira. Nick joins us from Ireland, where he also works as an independent change and transformation leader. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick, and hi, everybody. I'm looking forward to engaging. I know it's not the same as sitting in a room together, but we hope that this will be just as good. So I've probably got about 20 years experience, also multiple different industries, and hopefully I can answer some of the questions today.
I'm sure that you will be able to. And in fact, Nick is very kindly offered to present on our focus topic for today, which is something that I'm very much looking forward to. And it's all about really, how do you leverage the resources which are out there on the internet? How do you reach out to the online help that you can get, and how can that help you in your role? Now, if you are watching this and you're thinking that you could join us here on the panel and answer some of the questions, that would be brilliant. We'd really like you to volunteer, put yourself forward, and we will be in touch to introduce you and bring you into a future show. So look, let's jump straight into it, if we may. We're going to hear from our question master for today, who is Charlotte Miller, who is also joining us from the UK. Hi, Charlotte. Can you read the first question for us, please?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Nick. Question from Mohit, Mumbai in India. I have the feeling that in our organisation, change management is something that's put into place as a tick a checkbox. As a change manager, how can I best secure executive support?
Okay, so lots of hands have gone up on the panel already. Yvonne, I think you just were the fastest hand up there, so let's go to Yvonne first.
Terrific, and thank you. And one of the really fascinating things about this is that having the senior leader, the executive support, is the #1 driver in a successful change. And so when you are missing that, then you're kind of underpinning, the whole foundation is just not as strong as it should be. So reminding them of their accountability. #1, reminding them that they have places that they are responsible to and how these changes will help them be successful. #2, and really encouraging them, supporting them, championing them. They've got their own fears, but really helping them feel strong and confident through the change as well.
Thank you very much. And Lauran, and then we'll go to Nick.
Okay, hi. So I agree. It's such a crucial part of your success factors, and yet it's one of the most common questions I get from my delegates in the training space is, but how do we get the support? And for me, people are my thing. I love people, and there's two very important things. One is you've got to speak their language. Don't speak communication, training, speak benefits, return on investment. Speak to the people so if you're looking at executives, speak to them in their language. And the second part is give them context. Let them understand that they're already investing money in a project, in a product development, for instance. Get maximum return on that by investing in the change management process as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Both really great insights. Nick, and then we'll come to Shontelle.
Just totally agree. Speak the language. And the only thing I would add to that is, from a change perspective, you help create the environment for success in programs that executives are driving. They have a reason for driving that. There are business reasons behind why they've chosen to start some sort of change, and speak their language, and in whatever way you can, provide the support for them to be successful. And that has worked in my experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much
Thank you.
indeed, Shontelle, and then we'll go to Robert.
Okay, and one other thing you can do is to show them that having change management on projects work. So a case study. If you have an example of a project where change management made the difference, bring that to their attention. So for example, if a system was implemented and 24 out of 25 individuals adopted the system, there was compliance, there was increased efficiency and productivity, which meant that individuals were able to sell 10 more contracts, which meant $2 million additional revenue at the end of the quarter. Bring that to their attention, show them that change management makes a difference. And if you have a case study, bring that to their attention, and I think that would help produce a very strong argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Worked examples are super powerful, aren't they? Thank you very much, Shontelle. So some final thoughts on this then from Robert, and then we'll look to move on.
Yeah, well, I would agree with all of what the others have said. And what I would add is the evidence that change projects and programs only work when the executive is properly involved. It's a sad fact that a lot of projects and programs fail because all the right things were done to build something or create a new process, but the benefits you were expecting never happened because the organization didn't shift itself in order to derive that. I think actually present the executives with the evidence, because there's shed loads of it. I'd look to, we use a thing called the gateway review process in the UK. It's easily available on Google, and it gives you a lot of good questions to ask, and it points you at the various audit reports that have come out over the years, showing just how important it is to make sure the top of the shop is well engaged.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you very much. I love those technical terms, so that's really great. So thank you very much, Robert. Spoken truly and from the heart. Now, I would just say to everybody, thinking about this, that getting those that C-suite, that exec level sponsorship is all about talking from the heart. Present them with the information as you see it. Back it up with the data as you see it. That's the right thing to do. Next question, then, please, if we can, Charlotte.
Hi, question from Janaki, Sweden. What are the best techniques to ensure that our change programs are aligned across multiple teams?
Okay, Yvonne.
One of the core functions that I love using is a cross-functional change advisory board. And by having someone involved from operations, from sales, from all of the different key stakeholder groups, that it creates a forum for discussion. So the responsibility for alignment is actually then responsibility of that team. So as a change lead, you're not carrying that burden. Everyone knows that in order for a change to work, all of those areas need to work together and create the best outcome and results for their stakeholders. And so by bringing them together, regular discussions, typically bi-weekly, seems to work. They feed the topics or the areas of concern, and continually reviewing an integrated roadmap has really, really worked wonders.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Indeed, Shontelle.
Okay, so I definitely agree with Yvonne. Communication is really important. What I would do is to have everyone in a group, for starters, and communicate the change to everyone at the same time. But as well, also have change agents in each of the teams, and a change agent could be the team leader. That change agent would be responsible for answering any further questions, helping persons adopt the initiative, dealing with resistance, etc., and building out a change agent network where these change agents can also come together and help one another. They can discuss tactics that they've used, what has worked, what hasn't worked, how to get persons on board. And I think that builds community, and it also helps division of labor, because as Yvonne rightly said, as a change manager or change consultant, you can't be in all places at the same time and take on all of this responsibility. So definitely having a change agent network in place could definitely make the difference.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And we'll take a comment from Nick, and then we'll go to Lauran, and then we'll move on.
So totally agree with everything that has been said. And I think one of the keys here is to get the different people in the different streams or teams to take ownership. From a change manager perspective, you're there again to facilitate this. But individuals need to take ownership if they are going to drive the change into through their teams and through the business. So the last thought I will leave before we move on is there is no easy way to do this. It is hard work. It's not just communication once, it's continuous communication. It's not just ensuring alignment once, it's ensuring alignment across the lifetime of the program. It's not just ensuring that people are are looking at taking ownership at the beginning, it's across the lifetime of the program. So the best technique is to keep at it, keep working at it, have your plan, work your plan, develop a relationship with them, and it's only over when it's over.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Lauran, final thoughts on this?
Sure. I agree very much with all the points that have been raised. I would just like to add one thing. If you are looking at truly aligning change programs across multiple teams, some time needs to be spent on clarifying the actual overall shared vision and communicating that outwards. And also to have a good look at the culture and make sure that your organization's culture is not actually stifling that communication, that you're not sitting in silos where it actually is really hard to work together across multiple teams. Thank you.
Right, yeah, I totally agree with that. Thank you very much. So Charlotte, let's move on, please, and we'll take the next question.
We've got a question from Blake in St Ives in Cornwall. Have any of the panellists had any positive change from the pandemic, either from a professional or from a personal point of view?
Okay, all right, Robert, let's kick off with you.
Yeah, so I've spent all of my professional career until recently working in the UK public sector in the health arena. We were very caught up in the pandemic, and I certainly was myself. The positive change, I would say, is anybody who works in government or as part of government will know that there is policy, there is process, and it sometimes takes time to get things done simply because you have to bring an awful lot of people with you. During the pandemic, we had to condense our decision making, sometimes from what might have taken months into 48 hours. You know, we all know our lean theory and that sort of thing. And it's very easy to talk the talk. This was the first time I've been in a position where we really did have to make decisions very, very quickly. And the positive change that I took from it was that we really did look at where were the bottlenecks, and we pulled those bottlenecks out. I think that we made some really, really good decisions. And I think the fact that it took a few days rather than a few weeks or a few months didn't detract from a very professional decision-making process. It's just, we all so easily fall back on process. And it's so easy not to make a decision that often people don't. So my positive change was thinning out the process and making it happen more quickly, but equally as effectively.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Nick, and then Yvonne.
So I moved countries from South Africa to Ireland. And
Wow.
it probably, yeah, in the middle of a pandemic. But you know, the approach that I took was, it was an opportunity to reevaluate, where are we, what I want to achieve. And I think with the world slowing down like it did in certain aspects, it created an opportunity for, in my personal life, to take a leap that is going to be generational, have a generational impact for my family.
Okay, thank you very much, and we might explore a little bit more of that in a future show. I think. Yvonne, final comments before we move on.
My most shining moment was actually where my personal and professional have come together. I've had the opportunity through the pandemic to work with my two sons, an older one based out of Manitoba, Canada, the younger one based out of another city in Ontario. And we've all three had the opportunity to support the same fintech startup. So I don't know, it's just so exciting to be on a Zoom call with your adult children and see them be so capable and intelligent and contribute to a fascinating work environment. That's been a real once in a lifetime opportunity, courtesy pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us have found that, that it's connected us with family in different ways and with colleagues in different ways. And around the world, it's allowed us to connect while also kind of thinking a little bit more about the planet and our impact and, how much travel actually, how much time it takes up really, and how much resources it takes up. So brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. So let's move on to our next question. We've got the questions stacking up. And if you're watching on YouTube or on LinkedIn, then do hop over to Slido. And don't forget, you can vote up the questions as well. So we've got lots of questions to get to. So please do let us know which ones you would prefer answered next. Thank you. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Question from Paul, London, UK. Do all projects deliver the value they set out in their business case?
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to invite Shontelle to speak first, and then, if with the panel's patience, I'm going to go to Robert next. Okay, so go ahead, Shontelle.
This is a very good question, and in my experience, all projects sometimes do not deliver the value that was initially intended, and that could be due to a number of reasons. Sometimes the scope of the project changes, and you get different benefits and different value, and sometimes it doesn't change, and you still get additional benefits because of what was implemented. So it all depends. I think what's most important here is that something is achieved at the end of the day that the customer is happy with, and that they're satisfied with the outcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I heard a lovely quote from a 90-year-old professional musician the other day when he was asked, why do you still practice? He said, because I feel I'm making progress. And I thought that was a lovely way to be able to summarize sometimes the trials and tribulations of delivering, the value out of some large transformational change programs. Robert, what's your experience of this?
I'm looking at this I'm looking at the words business case, because my background was in reviewing public sector business cases. Most projects and programs achieve something, but I think we've all seen the evidence that they often don't achieve the value that they set out in the business case. And that's not always a bad thing, because if there's one thing that's certain, it is there's always going to be change. And if you're doing a 5 to 10 year delivery period for a large program or a large project, sure as eggs is eggs, what it is that comes out the back end in terms of business value or benefit may well not be what it was that you first envisaged. What I would say here is let's not view a business case as a point in time or an immovable object. I think a business case is a dynamic process, and it keeps on moving. You need to keep looking back at what were your spending objectives in the first place. What were the outputs you wanted to deliver, outcomes in order to deliver benefits? And if you keep reframing those and revisiting those every 6 to 12 months along the way, let's hope that the most recent iteration of your business case does show that value has been achieved. Because if you measure something 5 years on against a piece of paper that was signed off by a board 5 years earlier, very, very easy to consider, well, we didn't quite get what we wanted, did we? The question is, and as some of the others just said, is the thing that has been delivered of value, even if the context is slightly different to that which you set out?
Excellent, great advice. Thank you very much. And finally, Nick, your closing thoughts on this before we move on.
So I think that in the planning process, right up front, there needs to be more of an emphasis on discussing what benefits do you want to achieve. And it doesn't just become the outcomes of a project, but a lot more thought right up front. And how are you going to measure those benefits? Like Robert has said, it is a live dynamic discussion that can continue over time. But to get proper value, my experience has been programs that have those discussions in a good way up front tend to deliver more business value and benefit later on.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, panel. Great question. So thank you for the question and thank you for your answers, your insight. Charlotte, next question, please.
We have a question from Tabo in Kenya. We have been mostly successful with our change programs, but in one area we have a person who's causing a lot of negativity and is derailing the program. What is the best method to deal with this?
Okay, Shontelle and then Lauran.
All right, so when an individual is being quite negative towards an initiative, there is something underneath the surface that's causing their reaction. And that thing is what you need to understand and get hold of. So the most important thing to do is to have a chat with that person, if you're the right individual to reach them and to understand why they're behaving the way they are. So it may be you, it may be their manager, or it may be a peer. If their peers, are change agents and are able to reach them on a deeper level. So understanding why they're behaving the way they are is crucial. And it's at that point that you're able to put certain steps in place to help that individual. So just a quick example, an individual may be negative towards an initiative because they fear they don't have the competence level to understand, let's say, a new system. When you understand that that's the reason why they're being negative, then you're able to offer them relevant support so that they would feel a lot better about buying in and adopting that particular solution.
Thank you very much. And Lauran?
I would like to definitely agree with Shontelle. If you haven't done that, nothing else is going to work. You've got to establish the reason. People are not negative or against an initiative of any sort just because. And once you've established that reason, then you've got to be able to try and see it from their point of view. The egos need to be removed. Emotions need to be removed. And you need to be able to step in and say, okay, so from their point of view, what are the things I could be doing to accommodate them? And by so doing, slowly win them over to gain their support. But I think if you haven't established that initial reason for the negativity and for them derailing the project, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not necessarily going to work.
Okay, thank you very much. And a final comment on this, Nick.
Just something very practical that I do. I have a coffee budget and I will buy them a cup of coffee and have the discussion, to try and find the reason.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where it is trickier to pick up some of this resistance when you're working remotely as a high proportion of your time than perhaps it may have been, when you were working face to face. We are somewhat pre-programmed, I think, to be able to pick up those, little clues in the way in which people's behavior changes. It's a little easier sometimes, I think, to detect that when we are in the same space. But nonetheless, there are tools and techniques available as well to consider when we're working remotely, how you might, explore that and the willingness, for people to come on the change journey with us. Okay, so look, we're going to take one more question before we go into our focus topic. So, Charlotte, last question, please.
Question from Hans in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. What are the best resources to help overcome resistance to change?
Okay, we'll come to Yvonne in a moment, and then Gregory, I'm going to jump straight in and say people is the first kind of thing that springs to my mind. Yvonne, go ahead.
I love the new language that has been assigned to finding new ways to listen. So a lot of the standard, surveys and forums have now been translated into language like Ask Me Anything sessions or listening tours. So at the end of the day, overcoming resistance to change is about listening, as mentioned in the previous question, about drawing them out, understanding the negativity. And in fact, the more that people actually talk about it and you can listen to it, the more that you can actually address the underlying fear that is often underpinning the resistance to change.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert.
I would simply say one of the best resources is time. And if you're on one of those projects, like we often are, where actually time's of the essence, it needs doing by yesterday, you're already on the back foot when it comes to managing resistance to change. So I would simply echo what the others have said. You know, make sure you allocate enough time to dealing with resistance. Think about how you are going to plan to manage that, and how you're going to just allow those people or those processes which are holding you up to understand where you're coming from. If you try to rush it, you won't get through. And when people say to me, as they often do in the business I worked in, what can we do to cut 5 months off the initial planning process? I would say to them, don't cut the time out then. You'll save it later on if you plan well early on. It's the same discipline that sits with all good project and program planning. So for me, it's time to listen and time to engage.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, somewhat promptly, we're at the right time now to be able to kind of change gears. So that's what we're going to do just right now. And I want to move on to our focus topic, if we can, and I'll reintroduce really Nick to you. So look, if you're watching online and you're in Slido, you'll see that there are 2 rooms in the Slido session. Just click on the second room, which is the focus topic all about online resources, okay? And then you can add in any questions in real time for Nick to answer and the rest of the panel after this short presentation. So in the next 10 minutes or thereabouts, Nick's going to take us through his thoughts on, exploring the resources that are all available to all of us online, which may at first sound kind of straightforward, but then, on the internet, how do you know what you're looking at can be trusted and so on? So look, I'll hand over to Nick, who's going to share his thoughts with us. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much, Nick. And like Nick has said, first thoughts, or when you have a look at, what is available online, it's actually not an easy question to answer. There is just so much. What is worthwhile? What is valuable? It's sometimes a very difficult question to answer. And so I'm not going to try and give you a list. There is some at the end, a starting point for you to have a look at some stuff that is online, but more to try and answer the question, what is valuable in terms of delivering change? What are the sectors that technology needs to, or online services needs to address to assist delivering change? So we can move to the second slide, please. This was a quote that was given to me about 20 years ago by somebody who was very successful in their business life. They are now retired. And the quote was, invest in a company that any fool can run, because chances are one day a fool will run that company. The point being here is it's people that actually are your biggest resource. And I know Nick brought that up, but that's where you start. If there are people that you can talk to, even, a forum like this, what are we doing? We're sharing our experiences. And that's where it starts. It's people that drive change. You can move to the next slide, please. It's the people that actually make it work. I've had experiences in organizations where they've got all the latest technology and they still fail. And I've also had experiences where they don't have too much technology, but there is a will, there's a drive, there's a passion to make things happen, and they get it right. And so talent, the new capital, it's people that make it work. What do we do with the technology? The world that we're moving in, that we're living in, it's more of a partnership. we work with technology. There was a whole lot of thought a couple of years ago that the computers are going to take over and automation, and the thinking is more towards partnering with automation now. But there definitely is much more of a digital fusion of physical, digital, and biological spheres. But it's, from my perspective, the technology needs to be an enabler, but it's people that make it work. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. Having said that, we now see ecosystems of technologies that exist to create benefit or to enable, if you want to deliver through a project or a program. And these technologies are becoming integrated. In other words, they speak to each other. And what you do in one system gets drawn into another system, and it happens in this cloud. It's no longer just on your desktop. It's connected to somebody in a different country. I'm currently working on a program that is across Europe and North America. And it's not uncommon that I can be working on something, sign off when my day finishes, and somebody picks it up in Canada and continue. And when I sign on the next day, there's a whole lot of development that has taken place in that particular document or that plan or that presentation, whatever. So what we're seeing is that work takes place, and there is a lot of complexity and data, and the key to benefit being seen and online resources actually playing a part is that we get to make better decisions because that data is presented to us in a way that enables us to make faster, more accurate decisions, hopefully. Again, it's still people who need to make the decisions. We can't get away from that. And we can make good decisions and we can make bad decisions. But the connectivity and the complexity that is enabled, or the display of that is enabled by technology, hopefully helps us make quicker decisions in a better way. So we can move to the next slide. So the questions then become, what do we need to help us make those better decisions and drive change? We're talking about, technologies, online resources within the change and project environment. And taken from the World Economic Forum, talking about the type of skills that the people that we work with are developing to a greater extent: analytical thinking, active learning, complex problem solving. I was on a program in a mine in Africa. It was a procurement technology that we put in, and we managed to break that procurement technology. And the impact on the business was a $60 million impact per month until we got it fixed. And so we had to be very, very, we had to figure out what had we done wrong? How do we solve this problem? And how do we use technology then to enable us to fix it? This is the real world that we live in. As people, combined with technology, working across the world, we had people sitting in India, we had people sitting in Africa, we had people sitting in the States. Everybody trying to work to solve this problem, connected through technology, wrestling with a real world impact. So we can move to the next slide. My point being, it's not just technology that solves it. Sometimes technology can actually create more complexity. Sometimes it means we just need to do the work and get together and talk and track the decisions that we've made and be disciplined about doing what we said we're going to do. But within an organization, it's not just the people, it's not just the technology. We also need to understand the why and how we go about it. obviously the questions that I've put on this slide need to be considered within the context of the industry that you're working in. Some things will work in certain industries, some things won't work in other industries. Technologies that you might use in the financial industry won't necessarily work in the manufacturing industry, or the mining industry. If you're working in public sector, there's probably a lot of compliance that creates complexity in decision making, and all of those are factors that need to be asked in terms of what technologies are going to enable us to be better at what we do. What is the change? What resources will enable the change? What technologies will enable the change? If we can't answer, why we want to change, who wants to change, what that change looks like, we can't really answer the question of what resources do we need. Because, like I said right up front, there is a huge amount of different resources out there. There's lots of technology that we can apply. If we don't use the right technology, we can actually just add complexity to it. And so, to answer the question, to start to answer the question, what resources are available, we've got to ask certain questions about, so who am I working with? What are we trying to achieve? If I introduce, is it the right time to introduce new technologies? One of the programs that I was involved in, halfway through, changed the project management software that we were using. Not probably something that I would recommend, halfway through. We've got to ask those kind of questions. Can the people who I'm working with, is it something that they're willing to adopt? Another real world example is working in a consulting company, highly intelligent people, and we wanted to try and introduce an internal messaging system. And the younger consultants ran with it. The older consultants said no, they want to stick with email. And they found that the internal messaging system actually doubled the amount of work that they were doing. And so it's not just simply saying, here is a new technology. There has to be this human interactive discussion on how we're going to use it, what do we want to achieve in order to get the benefit out of it. We can move on to the next slide. So if we're talking about in a change environment, my personal experience at this integrated set of technologies, this suite, this ecosystem of technologies, from a change perspective, we deal with impacts, we deal with managing stakeholders, we deal with communication, we deal with developing competencies, and all of that needs to translate into new and hopefully better ways of working. And these are the suites of technologies that I would typically work with on a large program. You would have your MS Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. These are your daily go-to type of technologies. We're creating presentations. We're communicating by email. We're managing projects through something like Microsoft Project or Smart Sheets. We all work with these kinds of things. They're basically foundational to operating in a digital environment. Linked to that is the collaborative type of software that we need. This is a collaborative tool. It enables us to talk across different continents, and particularly, I think the experience over the last 2 years, where we haven't been able to do the face-to-face stuff, the importance of this has just blossomed. Where we're able to work on a document across time zones, have some place where the single version of truth is stored. So we're not emailing different things backwards and forwards, and we've got 10 different versions, and what's the latest one, and trying to manage that kind of challenge. So flowing out from the office kind of stuff, what collaborative kind of resources do you need to put in place so that you can work together, not necessarily face to face. Communication, vital. Without communication, we don't get things right. We can't address resistance. We can't help people understand the why. We can't, put the vision out there. And so your Zooms, your intranet, your WhatsApp, the different media type things that you might do on a change program or project. It's vital that to the office stuff, to the collaborative stuff, you have some sort of communication technology integrated into what you're doing. Then competency development. How are we going to prepare people for the transformation? Change is basically unlearning something that you used to doing and relearning a new way of working. And yes, that is a simplified version of describing change, but that's fundamentally what we do. And in order to unlearn something and relearn something from a change perspective, we have to design that journey, that learning journey, a journey where people can take new experiences, new knowledge, new ways of working and making it their own. And so we need to identify, what competency development software will we use or tools will we use? Stuff like PowerPoint, Articulate 360, which are authoring tools. SAP Enable Now is again an authoring tool. Linked in with maybe learner management systems if you are in a larger organization. All of those are necessary to help people learn how to work in new ways. Coupled with that are describing these new ways of working, and we use tools like Visio, which is looking at different process maps, Draw IQ, linked in then to your HR systems. What I've described on this slide is a suite of integrated technologies that in any program, myself or the teams that I work with will be dipping into on a daily basis. And so to try and answer the question, what online tools are there? There are lots of tools out there. But the question that you need to ask yourself before finding those tools is what I want to use them for, and hopefully understand that it's part of an integrated suite of tools that you will need to employ to effectively manage and drive that change. Last slide, please. So the question then is, what works for you? What I've got on this slide is a starting point. For project management, there are maybe 10 suggested or the best project management tools out there. Process mapping, change management, collaboration. I'm not too sure, Nick, how this works after the presentation, whether people can access this.
Yeah, that's fine. We can include some links and so on for you.
Okay, these are just links that anybody can just start with. It's not an exhaustive list of tools or technologies, but that suite of functions that you require technology to assist you with. I've basically covered links to all of that, to all of those requirements in the slide. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Nick. So that's great. If you're watching on Slido, then do make that leap into the Focus on Online Resources set of questions. Nick, I'm going to come to you first, and panelists, please, if you again could indicate that you're ready to answer, that would be great. First question, please, Charlotte.
So this is a question from Ryan in Belfast, Ireland. Can the panel advise me which online tools are best to manage projects and programs? Most of our projects are small to mid-sized projects.
Okay, now we need to move at some pace, panel. So Yvonne, super quick, please.
So really, the short answer is the one that works for the company you're with. So if you think about the end state of the project, where do you want to be in X months or X years? Whether it's Agile boards or whether it's Microsoft project, it's the one that really works for the culture and the capability of the organization you're with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And while we get ready with the next question, I would just say, explore some of the more online software as a service environments that are available to you now. There's a whole suite and plethora of them available, specifically designed for smaller projects. So next question, Charlotte.
There's a question from one of our panelists, from Yvonne. How do you help your stakeholders learn to use new online tools when they are remote and perhaps not very tech savvy?
Okay, Lauran. Can't hear you, Yvonne.
Lauran.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can now, thank you.
Okay, I speak from great experience in this area, having dealt with everything from 5-year-olds through to 55 to 65 to 95-year-olds. So I do understand not so tech savvy. And the number one thing is patience. You've got to give that space and understand that what for you is so logical is not the case for everybody else. The other is find something very simple that allows you to communicate. So whether it's Zoom or Teams, but simple, and start with that and then build slowly but surely, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. It will pay off in the long run, definitely.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Lauran. And Robert?
I would just build on that really and say it's really, really important to have all of the online tools available. But for some people, using technology such as Teams or Zoom, having real people talking to them and maybe just taking 10 minutes out in a day to help point them in the right direction and give them the confidence. And I, you know, I have no empirical evidence here, but I would say for every 10 minutes spent with somebody like that, you'll probably find they'll move on in leaps and bounds on their own later on.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. All good advice. Next question, please, Charlotte.
Question from Paul, London, UK. Will the panel return to in-person conferences instead of virtual, or do they prefer to network online?
Okay, Nick.
So I think it's going to be a bit of both, Paul. You know, the engagements that I'm having with people, there are certain things that are much better face to face, and yet there are certain things that have worked very well online. And I think part of the future is learning what is the best way to do things. We don't need to do things just online because the last 2 years we've done it. We don't need to do things face to face. But what is going to be the most effective for any given point in time?
Okay, thank you. Lauran, and then final word from Robert.
Just very quickly to agree with Nick, I currently do both. I'm doing a fair deal online. I'm doing just as much face-to-face. I love the face-to-face. And I never thought I would say this, but I love the convenience and the ease of the online. For me, it's definitely both.
Okay, thank you. And Robert?
I won't spend time rehashing what the others have just said. I think we're learning about this one, and it's going to be a while until we know. But I would say one thing. I had to take a training program online at very short notice, which Nick and Charlotte, you'll know all about. And I found that in terms of the equality agenda, it gave so much more opportunity to parents with caring responsibilities, people with other home commitments that wouldn't allow them to travel to a city and stay overnight. I don't think we should underestimate how working online could really be empowering people who may not be able to engage in the traditional management conversation of traveling to large conferences and spending 8 hours a day on a train. But we're still learning. There's going to be a balanced approach, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for your insights there, everybody. So look, we're pretty much up against the clock. Time flies when you're having fun, and so I'm going to come to each of you in a moment for your kind of closing remarks. Just on that last topic, I would totally agree, with what you're saying there, Robert. The online experience enables so many different people, to be able to at least contribute and join in a conversation, and I doubt that we would have travelled just to be together for an hour today. Not all of us at any rate. So thanks so much for that. So let's go around the panel for your closing thoughts. Nick, do you want to kick us off? Then we'll come to Robert.
Change management is all about leadership. Leadership is influence, not necessarily holding a position. And so, my starting point in any change initiative is to understand, how do I empower leaders to own and to deliver the change that is required.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Robert. And then Yvonne.
I would just add to that I just think we must never lose sight of the human dimension, understanding what motivates people to want to change, to deliver change. Sadly, having to understand what their vested interests are. What is it that individuals get out of it as well as organisations? Keep the human dimension up front, and hopefully you'll be successful.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Yvonne, and then Shontelle.
I love change management as a discipline because it combines both the art and the science of what goes on in our brains at any point in time. And it's a continuous learning journey. And I've been so privileged to share, but also to learn from my colleagues this morning. And I welcome the opportunity to pop up for coffee virtually across the world anytime.
We'll invite you, Yvonne. Thank you very much for that. Great, Shontelle, and then Lauran.
Change is the new normal. It's here to stay. And it's really important that we all get on board from a professional as well as a personal perspective. And the sooner we can do that, the more we can thrive in our professional and personal lives.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauran. And then Charlotte.
Thank you once again. This has been such an amazing forum. The opportunity to learn from colleagues, from like-minded people, and also to share my knowledge is truly remarkable. Thank you so much. And also just to say, please, change is a way of life. We study change as a methodology, as a framework, but it's not just that. It is what our lives are all about. And the people are important. And then just for the record, I'm happy to go and visit Shontelle in the Caribbean for our next one.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we've got at least one offer there, Shontelle, to fly out to join you. So don't feel alone. Don't feel a stranger. Send us a postcard. We'll come. And finally, Charlotte.
So I'd like to start with a comment from somebody that we've had an audience from on YouTube. People, those driving the change, those leading the change, and those impacted by the change are key to successful change. And I think that's so important. All stakeholders are imperative in a successful change. And with regards to online, not networking online, and thank you so much to our panelists, to the audience for the questions. Without this platform, I wouldn't get to meet such amazing people and get to ask some amazing questions from all around the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Great job, panel. Very well done, everybody. Great job, Nick, for your interesting and insightful presentation, thinking about, you know, all of those challenges that we have to leverage the technology we're provided with and also enable people to get the most out of it. So looking forwards now on the Level Up series. Next week, we are going to begin at 7 a.m. British summertime, which is 11:30 in India and 4 o'clock in the afternoon Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be talking all about careers, how to take hold of yours and really build it out. We'll be focusing on the role of professional memberships, you know, how to join organizations and how those organizations can help you in your continuing professional development throughout your career. So that's up first of all. And then later on the same day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, British summertime, 2 p.m. in Europe and 8 a.m. over in the US and also I think in Toronto. We'll be discussing certifications, specifically how these help you crystallize your aptitude to do something into evidence that you can present to future teams and employers. So do subscribe to the show. There's a little link, a QR code there for you. Just point your phone at that, and that will take you over to our registration page. Once registered, we'll send you a weekly summary of what's coming up next and how you can join in. And if you'd like to volunteer to be a panelist, that would be fabulous. So do join us again and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you. Bye-bye now.